Well, good morning, everyone. Let's call this meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn,
Here.
Commissioner Willis, here. Commissioner Desmond, here. Commissioner Anderson, here. Commissioner Becker, here. Commissioner White is absent. Commissioner McKenzie, here. Commissioner Mathis,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Von Wilpert is absent. Alternate Commissioner Drake,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Vargas is absent. Alternate Commissioner McCann,
Present.
alternate Commissioner Browning. Here. So alternate Commissioner McCann will vote in place of Commissioner White, who is absent. And there is a quorum with 8 voting members present.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner McKenzie, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is our review of the agenda for this morning's meeting. Mr. Simons, anything that you would like to touch on?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. So no changes to the agenda itself, specifically the amended version that was sent Thursday morning, which means we are going to continue the otherwise notice hearing item on Oceanside to our next meeting. But that said, when we get to the item, Chair, if we could check in with the clerk, if there's any comments for the record, we could take those and then simply continue the item. And no supplemental correspondence as well, so we are good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Let's take non-agenda public comment. This provides an opportunity for anybody who'd like to comment on something that is not on today's agenda, but is within the purview of LAFCO. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 closed session items this morning, public employee performance evaluation and conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation. Before we move into closed session, let's see if we have any public comment on the closed session agenda. Clerk, any public comment?
None.
Okay, with that, we will now move into closed session. Thank you. We are back in open session. I will call the meeting back to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn,
Here.
Commissioner Willis,
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie, Commissioner Mathis,
Present.
Commissioner Becker,
Present.
Commissioner Anderson,
Present.
Commissioner Desmond,
Here.
alternate Commissioner McCann,
Present.
alternate Commissioner Drake,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Browning.
Here.
So there is a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk. Ms. Watley, is there anything to report out of closed session?
As to closed session item 5A, there is no reportable action, and I'll defer to the EO as to item 5B.
Thank you. No reportable action either on 5B. That is all.
Thank you both. All right, well, let's move on in the agenda and take up the consent items, which are items 6A through 6H. Clerk, do we have any public comment on the consent items?
No public comment.
Okay. Let's see if there's a motion to approve the consent items, and then we'll go to commission discussion. Do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
Motion to approve?
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent items. Is there any discussion? Commissioner McKenzie.
Clarification. On page 21, there is a Azure software for $750 each month. Is that the software that tracks the, I guess, the projects? Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay, that's the one then that Tom Kennedy was involved in?
Yes.
Okay. So he told me he got the contract, so I just wanted
Commissioner, could you turn on the mic? We're not capturing the audio.
So with the chair's concurrence, we can call out the specific expenses as part of our next quarterly update, which I think is actually going to be before you in November. So Commissioner McKenzie, we can outline the where the money is going to the county and for what purposes. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the consent items? Seeing no further discussion, we have a motion from Commissioner McCann and a second from Commissioner McKenzie. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis,
Yes.
Commissioner Becker,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Desmond, Commissioner McCann.
Aye.
So there are 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you, Clerk. That brings us to our public hearing items. Item 7A, the proposed final report and related actions for the municipal service review on the Oceanside region will be continued to next month's meeting. That'll be held on November 4th, but let me hand it off to Mr. Simons if we want to explain anything further about that.
Thank you. So as the chair mentioned, we have continued the final report on the MSR for Oceanside to the next meeting, and in doing so, remedying some concerns about providing everyone, including commissioners, enough time to review the meaty document. But that said, with council's guidance, we do want to check in, Chair, with the clerk to see if there's any comments that we want to get on the record for those who did not get the word about the continuance. And if there aren't any comments, well, then we could simply proceed to the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Clerk, do we have any public comment on the Oceanside item? Ms. Watley, go ahead.
Yes, I'm just going to recommend that we do a formal vote or get a motion to continue it with a formal vote so that there's no issues with any of the public notices that went out. So if we, that's my recommendation.
All right, that's why we have you here, Ms. Watley. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I do make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Vice Chair Willis and a second from Commissioner McKenzie that we continue item 7A, the proposed final report and related actions for the municipal service review on the Oceanside region. Is there any public comment on the motion?
None.
There's no public comment on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Will we be actually voting for the MSR next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. The motion before the commission is to continue the item until next month's meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
McKenzie. Commissioner Whitburn,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis,
Yes.
Commissioner Becker,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Desmond, Commissioner McCann.
Aye.
8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you, Clerk. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 7B. That is the proposed Orion Calavo Drive change of organization. Are there any commissioner disclosures of ex parte communications on this item? Seeing none, we will ask staff to present the item.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Analyst 2, Michaela Peters for the record. So before the Commission is somewhat of a straightforward proposal to accommodate a relatively small development within Spring Valley. But as detailed in the agenda report, it nevertheless has some unique aspects that require the formality of a noticed public hearing as well as some waivers. So as for the proposal itself, it has been initiated by a landowner petition and seeks LAFCO's approval to annex about 1/3 of an acre of unincorporated land that makes up a legal parcel located at 3671 Calavo Drive to the Otay Water District and its public wastewater system. The timing of the proposal ties to the landowner having purchased the vacant parcel back in late 2018 and is now getting ready to pull the necessary permits to build a 2,500 square foot single-family residence and accessory dwelling unit as allowed under the county's rural residential zoning assignment. So on the left side of the screen, you can see just the subject parcel outlined in yellow. And in the photo to the right, you'll notice how the parcel lies immediately across the street from the current Otay Water District boundary, highlighted in blue, and is within the sphere of influence, although the subject parcel is separated from the current service area by Avocado Boulevard in the middle, which is also outlined in red. So although the subject parcel is within the Otay Water District sphere of influence, an otherwise sizable 8-acre portion of public right-of-way along Avocado Boulevard, which contains the sewer collection system, is not. So by way of best practice, it is suggested by the Otay Water District, as well as LAFCO staff, that we proceed with adding the area to the annexation in step with LAFCO's interest in facilitating clean or cleaner boundaries. So this has led staff to evaluating the proposal with current modification and sphere amendment, with a concurrent modification and sphere amendment, in mind, with the end result being that both statutory and local considerations all check out. This is marked by LAFCO independently confirming Otay Water District's ability to readily serve the plan development through the extension of an approximate 10-foot private lateral connection off of Avocado Boulevard, and based on the projected needs, which will take up less than 0.02% of the remaining available collection and treatment capacity for the district. The staff analysis and the otherwise certainty and service impacts leads staff to believe that it would be okay for the Commission to proceed without a new municipal service review to inform a sphere change to Otay Water District, which would otherwise be required under L106, given the current document on record is more than 5 years old. So this brings us to our set of recommendations for the proposal, which are summarized on the screen with 3 headliner groupings. So first, we recommend approval of the proposal with a modification to take in the adjacent right-of-way along with a conforming sphere amendment. Second, approval of standard conditions and waiver of L106. And third, approval of a fee waiver to allow staff to reimburse the applicant for the $4,600 charge associated with processing a sphere amendment, given this change is in the best interest of LAFCO maintaining clean boundaries. So with that, I would conclude my presentation and welcome any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Peters. Clerk, let's open the hearing and ask if we have any public comment on this item.
No public comment.
Thank you. All right, let's open this up for commission discussion and any motions. Commissioner McKenzie.
Can we go back to that, let's see, where it shows the parcel and
Yes.
the additional 8 acres? 'Cause I just have a curious, why aren't we just going straight down and picking up? Does someone else have jurisdiction over that little triangle that we're not putting in?
So
8 acres?
this modification was recommended by the assessor due to the TRA boundary lines, the tax rate area. So that's why we are suggesting that we take in that portion of the road and not just go straight over to the Otay service area. Does that make sense? There's also a,
Really, but that's okay. I was just trying to figure out why we cut out that, it looks like it's probably a bridge or something.
in your agenda packet, there is a map from the assessor. You can check out what page it's on, but it'll kind of explain that a little bit better for you.
So the assessor did it. Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner McCann. Seeing no further discussion on the item, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner,
I just have one quick question. Was there any opposition to this at all? Okay, from anybody?
No opposition received.
Commissioner Whitburn,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathis,
Yes.
Commissioner Becker,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner McCann.
Aye.
There's 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you. That takes us to our business calendar. We will begin with item 8A, which is a review of policy L106 on conducting municipal service reviews. And we'll go ahead and take the presentation on this item.
Yes, thank you, Chair Whitburn. Good morning, Commissioners. Priscilla Mumpower, Assistant Executive Officer, for the record and on behalf of staff. So today, the Commission has the opportunity to review and discuss its existing legislative policy, L106, which governs how we go about implementing our Municipal Service Review Directive or program here in San Diego County. So this directive, just for a little bit of context, does date back to the legislature's comprehensive rewrite of LAFCO law in 2001. And this directive tasks LAFCOs to independently evaluate the availability, adequacy, and accountability of municipal services relative to community needs. Now, this evaluation, and specifically the Municipal Service Review report, serves three specific purposes, and those are reflected on this slide. So the first and foremost, LAFCOs must draw on municipal service reviews to inform its longstanding statutory obligation to regularly review and update local agencies' spheres of influence, and in doing so, game plan any potential jurisdictional change proposals that may come before you over the next and following 5-year period. Second, LAFCOs utilize municipal service reviews as starting points to inform decision-making on evaluating actual jurisdictional change proposals that are brought forward to you over the following 5-year period. And last, if consistent with a recommendation, LAFCOs are able to utilize the Municipal Service Review as the source document to initiate their own jurisdictional change proposals to either form, consolidate, merge, and/or dissolve a special district. Now, consistent with the otherwise broad discretion afforded to LAFCOs in carrying out their regional growth management duties, the legislature defers to each of the 58 commissions to determine how we go about preparing these municipal service reviews. There is, although, one qualification. So the qualification in this local discretion is that all municipal service reviews must be sufficiently scoped and scaled for LAFCOs to make written determinations covering certain factors, which are shown on the next 2 slides. So we make growth and population projections for the affected area. We also make determinations with respect to the location and characteristics of any disadvantaged unincorporated communities within or contiguous to the spheres of influence. We also make determinations based on quantitative performance measurements on the present and planned capacities of public facilities. So looking at the service capacities and demands and relative to meeting the needs of the community. We also evaluate their financial ability in providing services. So taking a look at those comprehensive annual fiscal reports and budgets. And also gaining an understanding and status of the opportunities for shared facilities, and all in making determinations on the accountability to those service needs and any other matter related to effective or efficient service delivery as required by the Commission. So with this statutory context in mind, this LAFCO adopted policy L106 originally back in 2003, and again on how to govern or how it goes about conducting municipal service reviews. And initially the focus was on goals and strategies. The policy remained largely unchanged until early 2023, when the current version was approved as part of a planned update aimed to go further into the prescribing of certain baseline standards, and specifically with respect to scheduling, preparing, and the hearing processes. So displayed on this current slide are some of the more prominent baseline standards in the existing policy, and I'll briefly go through these. So this includes the Commission maintaining a rolling 5-year study schedule with actual work commencing once the Commission adds a specific study to the adopted work plan. It also includes an expectation that staff is to attend no less than 1 public meeting of each affected agency to both advise, but also provide an opportunity to the agency to provide any feedback to staff. It also outlines that a public draft of the MSR with recommendations will be prepared by staff for Commission discussion at a publicly noticed meeting. And thereafter, there will be a 45-day public review and comment period on this draft before finally moving forward with a noticed hearing on the final report, which again requires the commission to formally accept and adopt a resolution with the necessary determinations as described in the first two slides. Now, the balance of the policy delegates the mechanics of the municipal service review process to the executive officer, and this includes setting the scope of work, as well as selecting which performance measurements to use. So this brings us to today's requested discussion on policy L106 and whether fine-tuning is merited to reflect the membership's preferences and priorities. The commission will recall that the request emerged from the August meeting and related to discussion on the Oceanside MSR regarding whether current staff practices in presenting this study is sufficiently meeting the mark. This specifically includes a request forwarded by Oceanside that LAFCO adjust its administrative practice to start sharing recommendations in the draft report before it goes to the full commission. So while staff certainly believes the current practice is sound and for reasons provided in the agenda report, we also recognize that there may be benefits to pivoting our approach. So today we seek the commission's input and direction on any changes that you would like to see before coming back to you in actionable form as early as your next meeting. So with that, I'll stop here and welcome any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mumpower. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
None.
Thank you. All right, well, let's open it up for commission discussion, and we'll begin with Commissioner Desmond.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. And thanks for the presentation and bringing back this L106 for our consideration. As you mentioned, Priscilla, the Oceanside MSR process, I think it's in both LAFCOs and the whatever subject agency there is out there, that the draft recommendations are shared with the parties while the MSR is being drafted. Or at least they get a look at it before it goes publicly. And we want to be friendly, we want to work with people, and we don't want surprises if it's avoidable. So I think that's probably in our best interest and the agency that we're doing the MSR on. So I think we should have a chance to work together. I know that we're doing the public outreach and going to their meetings, which is good. But once those recommendations come out, then those are made public, and the agency doesn't even find out what they are until it is made public. So I'd like us to update the L106 to allow subject agencies to review the draft recommendations and work with staff on those recommendations for a period of time, I don't know, for 60 days prior to the MSR being published. And I don't want us to cave in. I don't want us to, just give in to whatever the agency may or may not want. LAFCO still has to do its job and make certain recommendations. But if some of them can be worked out ahead of time, or information was not received by LAFCO for some reason that would have maybe changed a recommendation, I'd like to have the agency have that opportunity to work with us and not have any surprises. And even if they don't like what we're going to present, we still have to do our job, but let's give them a chance of weighing in. So I'll make that a motion to, I don't know if I make a motion or bring it back. Is that the procedure here? Or?
So we're going to take all the commission's comments and bring them in actionable form at your next meeting.
Well, I would like to see that in just my opinion. Let's work with agencies instead of surprising them and giving them that opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner Desmond. Commissioner Becker.
Yes, thank you. So I'm mostly in agreement with that. I'd like to be more transparent, and we've got a lot of important MSRs coming up. We've got Sandag, we've got the port, we've got all the county water authority. So I'd like to be transparent, but I understand that the staff practices that we're using right now are not written in the policy. So I'm not quite sure that there is a necessary action that we have to put this in the policy. I mean, I guess it seems to me we could do a recommendation that we let the parties look at the recommendations, and then they can put their comments, and that can go with the final report. I mean, I wonder if that's another way to ease into it, but I'm not opposed to changing the policy, but
the fact is that those practices are not in the policy, so I'm not sure that there needs to be a change as opposed to just sort of saying to our EO that this is the practice we'd like you to follow, and just to see how that goes. And I don't know if that's acceptable to you or not.
Well, of the steps that were shown up there and here, the recommendations and conclusions are not known to either party right now until they're made public. And I'd like that to be to change, to work with the agency before
I would
they're
as
made
well.
public.
I would as well. I
Yeah.
guess just I'm saying is that it's not, unless I'm incorrect in that, this is not a written policy that you don't share the recommendations. That was just sort of the practice that you've been doing.
Correct.
My understanding, it is written, that it is written in the policy in L106. I'm looking at their flow chart here, and it says they'll give the recommendations and conclusions in a public meeting, first out the gate. So I would like to have a step before that works with the agency before it goes public. And L106 says it comes out, the recommendations and conclusions come out in an open meeting, in a public meeting, and then if we could share that prior to that public meeting. I think it needs to be, I don't know if it needs to be added in or it's a step not there now.
We'll go to Commissioner McKenzie and then Vice Chair Willis.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it needs to be in the policy, and I agree with your timing of 60 days. And one of my comments was to change that, we're going to have one meeting to at least two, and maybe what we have is the one meeting towards the beginning of working through the MSR with the agency, and then meeting with them when the recommendations come out and have that conversation. So that would take in the two meetings that I was looking at. Kind of melds in with what Commissioner Desmond has said.
Vice Chair Willis.
I think the thing I always think about is, do the policies that we have, are they working? And what was it about Oceanside that all of a sudden they came back and said, hey, we don't like this slow growth terminology. How do we avoid that? I mean, that's part of the process, but how do we get, it took a while for them to catch up with us. So how do we fix that in the future? That's my question.
Isn't that fixing in Commissioner Desmond's comments? We're going to give them the recommendations, the whole MSR, and they're going to review it, and they've got 60 days to work through it before it becomes a public hearing.
That could be it.
Correct.
Okay.
Any, Commissioner Drake?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, there are a couple of issues. First, I think Commissioner Desmond is quite correct. I think the value of having that initial preview that's done privately gives everybody a chance to correct mistakes and misunderstandings that may be just totally unintentional, and that's a good thing to do. Second thing is I turned in a report to our CEO Keene concerning the fact that as an engineer, I think you can manage what you can measure. And both back in the Ramona MSR that we didn't really measure much. And there are actually clear objective measurements on the quality of life in every one of our jurisdictions. And I think we need to think about what those are because they're not arguable. They're everything from response times on ambulances to traffic measurements, to all the things that represent the quality of a city. And how do we do that and create a representative comparative measurement between our jurisdictions to say, these guys are doing a great job, these guys need work to do. And the MSR starts to become a more quantitative picture of what we need to do. I'll get off my horse, but that was the key thing that as an engineer I needed to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Drake. Any further discussion on this item? Seems like there's some
I'll go ahead and second
consensus. Okay. There,
the motion.
no need for a motion. Thank you. The executive officer is going to take this feedback and then craft a motion for our consideration at the November meeting. Okay. All right. Seeing that, we'll go ahead and move on to our next item, which is item 8C. No, I'm sorry, 8B. 8B is a quarterly progress report on the municipal service review on wholesale water agencies, and we're going to invite staff to present that item.
Yes, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. We have our LAFCO consultant, Chris Kate, who has been helping us with this massive undertaking. So he's here to provide us with an update and has a slide deck as well for us.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Kate, LAFCO consultant. So I want to give a brief update on some of the items that have been completed related to the CWA, MWD, MSR, and then some of the actions that are anticipated in the future to get to a point where we have a completed draft MSR and move forward with the process that you have just outlined. But to recap on what has happened thus far, we have done our initial outreach to both of the wholesale agencies. We have made trips to both of their boards to let them know that we were going to be undertaking this process. We also went forward and requested 15 years of financial data from both of the agencies, which we do have now, and are finalizing the summary and the review of that data to be included within the MSR. As well, we have held 2 ad hoc meetings of a working group that we have crafted with input from the from CWA as to whom should sit on that ad hoc committee, and I'll go over those agencies in a second. But suffice to say that we have done a lot of pre-work in terms of the outreach to both agencies to let them know that we are undertaking this process. As well, it was not stated, but we also went out to each of the member agencies or those whom wanted us to come and present to them to hear feedback and solicit feedback about what should we be reviewing when it comes to each of these wholesale agencies. And from that input came a list of issues that was presented to us that we have then relayed to our ad hoc work group, and you'll see them on the deck here under the headline of external issues. Back one slide, please. Thank you. Under external issues. So these are the issues absent the normal course of work of an MSR that we are going to be undertaking to review and try to address some of these topics, and then present those topics back to the work group to get their input prior to us making any recommendations as it relates to these issues. But these are the themes, as you will, that came up during the course of our outreach to each of the member agencies and our conversations offline as well too with various member agencies, and they are somewhat meaty, but are reflective, I think, of the course of where the wholesalers are going from a financial standpoint as well as a service standpoint. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, these are the ad hoc working group members who have participated in the first 2 meetings. Although not shown there, Metropolitan has been invited, and we do provide feedback to them on the topics and agendas for what we will be discussing. It has been, I will admit, some time since we last met with the work group. That's only because we have been working on these the items that were listed on the previous slide about each of those issues before we came back and presented to them. But I will say, I think in due time, we're going to start that up again and meet more frequently to hear the feedback about our research and writing on each of those points that were listed on that slide. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you'd like.
At this point, or wait till it's done.
Up to you, Chair.
Chris, I was wondering, can you go
This
back?
is the last slide, so we
Okay.
can go back. Yeah.
Okay.
So where are we today? One of the things that we are grappling with, I'll say, is during the rate process back in June by the Water Authority Board, there has been an interest in presenting some of the financial data to the rating agencies at the County Water Authority. So they were on a track that would have them start developing some of their long-range financing plans for review during the end of this calendar year. That is now all being pushed back. So right now, the Water Authority is in the midst of preparing a 5-year financial outlook to present to the rating agencies this month, and that will be provided to the CWA board at their November meeting. the long-range financing plan, which was a document that we were hopeful to have completed during our review of this and incorporate that plan within our own MSR, is now being pushed back to, at the earliest, the summer of 2025. So where that puts us is that before we do anything, we really want to review and have an opportunity to review and ask questions of the 5-year outlook that will be drafted and given to the rating and presented to the rating agencies this month. That is a very key document, I think, in our minds about where the agency will be going and what they are planning to do to mitigate changing circumstances at a local level with all these local projects coming online in the near term. I don't think we're in a position to delay the MSR until the summer when the long-range financing plan is released. I think it's a little bit too long. So we're going to have to put a little bit of an asterisk in our MSR, understanding that the development of this long-range financing plan is out there, and still proceed forward with our review. That is to say, unless the commission feels strongly that everything needs to be pushed back to await the outcome of that document, that's kind of where we're at in the swing of things with a lot of the curveballs that have been given to us based on the feedback that CWA has received. And then the last point on there is that we are working with Dr. Hanneman on this MSR. He's doing a majority of the writing and research on this, and we'll be having those conversations with the ad hoc work group as we proceed forward. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cate. Before we turn it over to commission discussion and questions, let's ask the clerk if we have any public comment on this item.
No public comment.
Thank you, clerk. Let's begin our commission discussion with Vice Chair Willis.
Chris, could you go back? I don't know, you start at the beginning again? Go back one. Oh.
Forward one. This.
Well, okay, there you go.
Okay.
So, external issues. When we do our final report, will we prioritize these items?
Those are no priority order. Yes.
Water affordability at the
correct.
Near the bottom. I don't think
that was a big conversation piece at our work group. This is presented with no priority status. All top of mind, given to each of those issues. I don't envision a world in which we actually prioritize. I know some folks would think that governance is the top issue. Water affordability being a top issue as well too. So I think we're going to, at this point, present it without any recommendation as to which is most important or more important than any other. We'll leave that to the commissioners to decide.
In terms of when I'm out in the field talking,
Sure.
especially is water affordability, man.
Understood. Yes, and that's been a conversation at the board as well. And again, we know that's a very top of mind matter.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice Chair Willis. Commissioner McKenzie.
Question through the chair for Mr. Cate. Can you go forward with everything in your MSR and leave the financial section until it's finished, and knowing that you would have all your parts and pieces done and you're just waiting for this section of the MSR to drop, to be able to drop it in? Is that possible?
That's kind of what we're doing now, especially on these matters. Governance doesn't really have an issue on the financial section. Neither does demand forecast and whatnot. So we are proceeding with these topics and waiting the 5-year outlook when it's presented to the rating agencies to help fill in those gaps. A lot of our look back is already completed, looking at past revenues and expenditures, capital programs, et cetera. The moving forward it's a rather big topic. It was something that's on the minds of a lot of the agencies because of the roll-off issue. So that is a key component, and especially looking at demand. So there are some interactions, like water affordability as an example. There will be some coordination between all those topics, but we are doing what we can absent those financials to get them done now, and then circle back on those topics when the 5-year outlook is released.
How was the ad hoc committee formed?
It was kind of a show of hands, for lack of a better term. We also talked to the Water Authority and asked for their feedback. Originally, we were going to do 2 separate groups, one of GMs and one of member agency, just CWA members. And then for, what's the word I'm looking for, just to streamline, so to speak, spoke with the Water Authority. They said, let's just have all the GMs as member agencies and come together in one group as opposed to having 2 separate groups to try to manage them. And we were open to that. And staff presented a list to the Water Authority. They were very accepting of it, had a couple of additions add on to it, which grew it to, I think it's at 11 now. If I can count correctly.
Those are all GMs then?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Good.
I will say for City of San Diego, there is staff does come as well with the director of public utilities, and then the Water Authority is also present. And as I mentioned too, we have also invited Metropolitan. The first 2 meetings were in person, I would imagine, because of Dr. Hanneman's remote. Will do virtual, which maybe allow, if Met would like to join, they're more than welcome to come and join as well. Sure. Yes,
I don't see Sweetwater Authority.
Correct. Not every member agency is on there, but we are happy to come by and give updates as need be as well. We have, when we originally went out to all of the member agencies, we have asked them if you want us to stay in the loop, we're more than happy to provide feedback on where things are at this point. Yes.
So are you proposing then to disseminate probably the agenda and the minutes to all of the agencies so they're kind of up to date and can zoom in and put their 2 cents worth in?
That is not the intent. That the work group is to be of this group. So we're limiting having 24 member agencies do this. I think is a little tough. Like we've done in other past MSRs, we've had work groups that just help navigate the conversation. Obviously, we'll go through the public input process once this is formed and receive that feedback and whatnot, and have open comments as well. But I will say it's probably a little bit tough to do with 24 member agencies to try to get some consistency and collaboration on that. I know Mr. Whitber knows it's difficult to work with 24 member agencies and have some collective move forward on things without too much disagreement.
It's just that this does affect 24.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think we have a good cross section. We have north, south, east, urban on this. I think it's a good reflection of the agency as a whole, and definitely varying viewpoints on all matters as well too, which is important to us.
Commissioner Drake.
Chris, thank you. You're doing a great job on this. A couple of comments. The last item on your list of issues is trying to create more fixed income. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Because of 20 years of felonious bad forecasting. And I don't see anything on your list about improving the forecasting for water demand. So instead, what we did is borrowed $1 billion to create abandoned assets. That's a felony. That's outrageous. So we are now, all of our agencies are stuck paying for this bad decision. Where does that improve?
So,
one thing I just want to comment.
Please.
I think the new management at the Water Authority is miles ahead of where the old one is. And I think they've got the integrity to maybe do a better job. So that was my first comment. The second comment is at the MWD, there's a massive difficulty in their management right now. They're still trying to replace their general manager. It's just, there are all kinds of dirty words I could use to say it, but it's a mess. And I don't know that they're going to be in a good state to be able to come up with a position statement. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, to your first point, I think that is under our that third bullet, the relationships and generating demand forecast.
Okay,
one of the issues was, for example, where does development of the County Water Authority's Urban Water Management Plan fit in with the urban water management plans that are generated by each of the member agencies? Even since we started having that conversation, there's been some shifts at the Water Authority board on voting how to integrate the local agencies' demand forecast within the larger urban water management plan. So that's kind of already started, and that's to speak, and I'll get to your second point, to speak to this as a whole. There is a lot going on at the Water Authority, a lot of changes.
Yes.
And we can, if we wanted to, wait really in perpetuity until all those changes are done before drafting the MSR. At some point, we're going to have to pull the Band-Aid off and just accept that there are things in the works and that we had to stop, acknowledge that those things are ongoing and working, but we can't wait until everything is done. And so I think there is some general consensus on that at some point in time, we're not going to be able to gather all the work that's being done at CWA.
Let me add one word
please.
to that first section, which is the word repurpose. Everything from the Twin Oaks plant to potentially the Carl Lewis desalination plant could theoretically be repurposed to create better sources of water. So with all the investment that's in there, there could be a change in direction.
Yeah, capital is a big one that absolutely. And then to your point on MWD, heard and understood, we're still going to offer the invitation to make sure that we are offering the invitation, leave that to them as at their pleasure.
You're doing well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chris, one last point. I'm sorry, Chair. All these agreements that the Water Authority have gone into, like the desal plant and so forth, there was no provision to get out of it if things were not working. Is there anything that can be done about about these agreements? Can that be part of the recommendation?
Potentially, I don't want to speak for the Water Authority by any means. I think their response would be partly why they're looking at some of the agreements that are going in place now about how to repurpose some of the water or offload some of the water, especially from QSA, to offset some of the costs associated with those sources of water. You're seeing those in the agreements with IED and the Bureau of Reclamation as well. So I think that's part of their strategy is to maybe potentially look at those. They've been very public about that as well too, to offload that. The agreements in and of itself, I think, is going to be a conversation. How we specifically insert ourselves into those conversations, I think, is still to be determined. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Becker.
Yes, thank you so much, Chris, for all this hard work. And it's a super interesting topic. I was just curious if we could have gotten your outline, like just even a day before or anything like that. I don't know if this was on the website or if this could have been emailed to us
I'm not sure, but we can absolutely make sure that you get a copy of this.
for
Absolutely.
the meeting so that
Sure.
we could sort of preview what's going on. Thank you.
Of course.
You're going to email that out to us?
We'll have staff, email it out. Absolutely.
Any further commission discussion on this item? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Cate, for the update. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to item 8C, which is the fiscal year 25 appointments to the California Association of Southern Region LAFCOs, and we will ask Mr. Simons to begin this item.
Thank you. So we're going to go to the bullpen. Joelle could not make it today, but Priscilla is going to help us with this item.
Yes, thank you, Keen. Thank you, Chair. Good morning again, Commissioners. I'll be reviewing the business item 8C, which is a bit of a housekeeping item. So before the Commission is a request to make 2 appointments to the current fiscal year to the Association of Southern Region LAFCOs. Now, this is a voluntary partnership between all of the 6 Southern Region LAFCOs, and those specifically are Imperial, Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, and yours truly, San Diego LAFCOs. The association dates back to 2010 and currently meets quarterly for the purpose of providing a venue for LAFCOs to discuss topics of mutual interest, which sometimes translates to tangible action such as submitting comment letters or sharing budgeted resources. The bylaws of the association are included in your packets, and they state that LAFCOs shall appoint a regular member as well as an alternate member to formally represent the commission. Now, admittedly, we have not done our best in keeping up with the formal appointments, which has led to some confusion on the association in knowing who holds each position. It appears it's been at least 7 years since the commission has made the appointments to the association, which suggests some of you may not be aware that there is an association. But Commissioner McKenzie has been a steady and welcomed representative of San Diego LAFCO. Had the pleasure of working with her most recently. So that has been wonderful. But over the last 7 years, she has represented us and certainly has been an ideal choice as one of the appointments. Nonetheless, another appointee is needed, and so today we are asking that the Commission formally establish these 2 appointments, 1 regular and 1 alternate to the Association of Southern Region LAFCOs. So I'll turn it back over. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
None.
Okay. Thank you, Clerk. I will turn it over to commission discussion and any possible motions. Do we have anybody who would like to serve in the position of the regular member? Okay. I see two hands. Vice Chair
I'll be
Willis.
the alternate.
Okay.
Did Joe raise her hand?
I nominate Joe.
Commissioner McKin. Okay. We have a nomination to nominate Commissioner McKenzie as the regular member.
I'll nominate Commissioner Willis as the alternate.
And we have a nomination for Vice Chair Willis as the alternate. Are there any other nominations?
I second combining the motions.
All right. Okay. We're going to bring forward one motion to designate Commissioner McKenzie as the regular member and Vice Chair Willis as the alternate member to the California Association of Southern Region LAFCOs. Seeing no further discussion on the item, I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Who was the first? Who made the motion? Drake and Desmond? Okay.
So the
Actually, yeah. So we need a motion from this side of the,
I'll make the motion.
okay? And then I think the second was Commissioner Desmond.
okay. So Commissioner Becker, is your motion to designate Commissioner McKenzie as the regular and Vice Chair Willis as the alternate?
Yes.
And Commissioner Desmond, is that your second?
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner McCann?
Aye.
There are 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
All right. We're going to move on to item 8D, and that is consideration and possible approval of the 7th Amendment to the Executive Officer's Employment Contract. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
All right. Seeing no public comment, I will make a motion. And the motion is based on Mr. Simon's outstanding performance. The commission will increase Mr. Simon's salary to $244,335 annually and allow Mr. Simons to cash out 65 hours a year in vacation pay annually.
Second.
There is a second from Commissioner McCann. Is there any commission discussion on the item? Seeing no commission discussion on the item, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes, and thank you, Keen, for your service.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner McCann?
Aye.
There are 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you, clerk. And thank you, Mr. Simons. Let's move on to item number 9, which is the executive officer report.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commission. It is an honor to serve you. So at your last meeting, I got the privilege of just introducing one of our new employees, Megan Trainer. We're joined next to Megan in the audience by our 8th new hire, and of course, we're budgeted 8 employees, Aiden Vasquez, who's our communications associate. Aiden comes to us recently as a graduate of San Luis Obispo and is going to be helping us improve our communication, make sure that we are consistent and getting the word out of all LAFCO activities, and already Aiden has been a great addition. The other, I should say, 8th of our total budgeted employees, Joelle Barilla. Many of you know because she recently worked as an aide to Supervisor Vargas. She was due today but had some family issues that she needed to attend, so our thoughts are with her. But I did want to thank the Commission. So the first time in my now 7 years as your executive officer, we are fully staffed, that the budgeted and actual filled positions equal out, And so thank you, Commission, for providing us those resources. Last but not least, I did want to note two other things. Commissioners McKenzie and Willis will be joining LAFCO staff next week up in Yosemite as part of the annual Calavo conference, and we'll provide a report back at the next meeting. And then we did have our. It is pretty nice. We did have also a meeting of our Special Districts Advisory Committee 2 weeks ago, and that was well attended. And I want to give a shout out to Kim Thorner, who's the chair of the Special Districts Advisory Committee, also a GM for Olivehame Municipal Water District. Not only did Kim host the meeting, because sadly the county kicked us out of our normal meeting room upstairs, but she treated us to a wonderful tour and some breakfast items. So thank you, Kim, if you are listening. So that is all.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Are there any commissioner announcements or requests for future items other than what we've already discussed?
Yes, there is.
All right, Vice Chair Willis.
We've had discussions, Keen and I, there's SALC 1, there's been SALC 2, and my concern is how do we actually boil it down? Part of our charter is to take care of agricultural lands, and the best way I think we can do that is to help the farmer and to treat the farmer as if they're extremely important. And so I've been listening to the farmers up there quite a bit, and I think that the best way we can help them is somehow work it. Maybe there's a funding somewhere else, but some kind of liaison person to the farmer that can help out with grant writing, that can help out with dealing with legislative issues to help them. They just need a lot of help out there. The farming industry is really struggling. So I'd like to have it on the agenda in the near future to discuss a liaison position that somehow we could start and get that going to help the farmer. And that is a big concern of mine.
Thank you, Vice Chair Willis. Any further requests for items on a future agenda?
I just got a question. Is that part of LAFCO? I mean, they got the Farm Bureau and things like that, and we always want to help. I don't know if that's a role that LAFCO under our charter or business. I'm not sure.
Through the chair, so if the commission determines that it is part of our charter, then it will be, and the tie would be notionally. You're tasked with supporting and protecting agricultural uses and a healthy ag economy. So the connection would be, would you believe that would justify funding a position, whether that be wholly and or in collaboration with others? I will say, because I have spoken to Commissioner Willis quite a bit, as well as Michaela and Priscilla. Michaela doing an outstanding job actually managing now SALC 2.0. We did approach both the county planning department and county ags weights and means to see what their temperature would be on a funding, sharing the funding of a position. That response suggests that at least right now they're not interested. So what I will do is work with the chair perhaps before the end of the year and maybe detail all the options that we see fit or see fit that could be for your consideration, and then you give us direction on the topic.
How is the Resource Conservation District involved? I thought they were taking a lead on this.
Well, they're involved in that they support the idea of an ag liaison, but in terms of actually funding an ag liaison, they do not have the resources or the bandwidth, at least as of today. And if I misspeak,
Grants for that.
yeah.
Is that Adam over there, right? It's kind of the best.
I'm sorry, what?
Who am I thinking of at RCD?
Joel Kramer.
Joel Kramer, sorry. Joel Kramer.
And there's Adam Wilson there, just in case.
Adam on the brain there.
All right.
Joel Kramer's one of the ones I'm talking to. Anyways, go ahead.
Okay, so staff will formulate some options for us to bring back at a future meeting, and we'll take that up as a commission. Any further announcements? Seeing none, that brings us to the end of our agenda, and this meeting is adjourned.